taming your inner child. There we go. Big round of applause, Harry.
I think probably one place that I always like to start is a few statistics. And probably one of the most scary statistics that I've learned in my time studying human behaviour and psychology and things like that is that it's only 5% of the time we actually spend in the present, in the now, fully mindful of our thoughts, our feelings, and how they're impacting our lives at this moment in time. Well, that means that 95% of the time we're acting subconsciously. It's just an automatic pattern that we're running out. It's like a script in the background. I mean, if you look at us like a computer, computers, when they're born, when they're produced, the old school ways, they come with DOS on, don't they? Yeah. So like a baby, basically, you can poop, you can wee, you can cry. That's pretty much about it. Yeah. If you put a baby actually under an electroencephalograph and a functional MRI and look at brain activity, it's actually like they're almost not there, like there's nobody there. And you go through several different developmental stages, as you're growing up. But you can actually adopt behaviours and patterns and emotions at any point in time during it. In fact, we've got now science evidence that shows we develop emotional beliefs in the womb, prenatal. And I mean, to give you an idea of one of those, what it was is they did a study and they looked at mothers who didn't want the babies. They wanted an abortion or something like that, and their circumstances, family or whatever, forced them to carry the baby full term. And as a rule, the babies tend to not engage with the mother and not suckle and things like that. They will suckle with other mothers, but not their natural mother, which is a kind of a strange thing. Now, one of the functions that actually happen is, a lot of people don't realise the heart is actually a brain. The heart has over 40,000 brain neurons. It has cognitive thinking. It makes decisions. We actually have the vernacular in our society. Oh, it was a heartfelt decision. I followed my heart. We all say these things, but don't realise actually there is some significant science behind it. And in fact, not only, as your brain got over 40,000 brain neurons, it's got a neural cortex, just like the neural cortex in your brain. But you've actually got 20 times more neural pathways going from your heart to your brain than from your brain to your heart. So what your heart thinks is 20 times more important than what the brain thinks. And in a mother's womb, all our hearts at this moment produce an electromagnetic field. Now, you may have seen the Earth has got this like donut of an electromagnetic field called the torus field. Well, every living cell in your body produces a little torus field just the same. Now, your heart produces the largest one of the whole body. It's several thousand times more powerful than one in your brain. And it actually can be physically measured with equipment about 7 feet away from the body. In fact, if you put yourself in a Faraday cage to eliminate electromagnetic radiation, you can measure it further. So in this room, all our heart fields are actually connected. And it's a vibratory field. In fact, the vibratory field is as complex as the language I'm using to actually communicate this with you. Every single emotion that you have in any day is communicated instantaneously in that moment through this heart field. If you want to know more, go to the heartmath.org, where there's a lot of science and things like that which shows you how it works. And this communication field is actually communicating with each other before we speak, before we even look at each other as you enter the room. I mean, has anybody entered a room and said, oh, it's a good vibe in here? Yeah? Or you met somebody and instantaneously go, oh, we're on the same wavelength. So why have we said vibration? Why have we said wavelength? Again, we use language without really understanding why we're using that language. It's a vibratory network. So if you understand the wave function, it's very simple. If you get a peak of a wave, meet a trough of a wave, you get cancellation. You get the sum of the two, which is technically zero. So the classic example is like an anti-motion. Yeah. Push, push, push. Lots of energy in, hardly any movement. Yeah? So when you're feeling high spirits and you meet somebody who's really low down and negative, what do? They drag you down, don't they? But you lift them up. And that's the cancellation effect. What it is your heart wave is out of sync with theirs, and it houses that function. So in the baby's in the womb, your heart as a mother synchronizes that field with your heart. And they're both absolutely perfectly synchronized. And you're communicating all your emotions as a mother directly to your child. Now, as a baby, all we're doing is learning our environment. We're just downloading, right? They go through a few stages, and if you just look at every single baby in every single, country, they do the same thing. And they go through a stage where they go, and they're just saying noises. And what they're doing is they're listening to the structure of sentences, and they're just copying it. They don't know what they're saying. It doesn't mean anything to them in language. We think they're saying stuff because they're having a conversation with you. But in their head, there's nothing really happening. All they're doing is getting exposure to language. There was an interesting experiment in Africa where they looked at, there was a couple of different villages. And one village, they believed that you shouldn't talk to your child until they're about 18 months, 2 years old. It's pointless. There's no benefit to it. And so what they did is they actually did a study in the language and their social interaction of the children in that village, and then other villages which spent a lot of time, talking to their, physically engaging, and they found no difference in the structure of language. And it's because it's just exposure. Yeah, it sounds crazy. We shouldn't actually engage with the child. It makes no difference to the child. It's alienated from what we understand. But the science there is shown. It's just exposure to this kind of stuff. There's quite a few other things which I don't have time to get into. If you want to understand something a little bit deeper, go Rupert Sheldrake and morphic resonance. And there's a fascinating phenomena that we actually communicate information through a field of information. If you want to Google the rat experiment, it was a very simple one where what they did is they got a rat and they trained it into this maze. So when they exposed it to the maze, it took so many hours to be able to reduce it by so much percent. Yeah? And what they did then is they thought, well, do we pass on information through our genes? That was one of the big things, all the genome experiments and all that kind of stuff. And so what they did is they took the offspring and then they put them in the maze, right? And they found that the offspring actually started from somewhere similar to where the parents left off. So they thought, oh, well, we must be sending information through our genetics, right? But then what they did is they got other rats from the same species that weren't actually related to them in any way, shape or form, put them in the maze, and they started off where the offspring finished off. And I was like, well, that's a bit strange. So they got information through a different way, that wasn't through DNA. So there was two other universities, one in New York, one in New Zealand, and what they did is they thought, this is a bit crazy, we're going to replicate it. So they got the same maze, replicated all the same experiments, and they used rats from their own country, and they all started off where the other ones left off. So we were passing on information, even though they were on different sides of the world, the same species. And again, this field, people talk about the common consciousness. And again, this is probably a deeper subject, probably to cover in a quick 20-minute talk today. And these are all functions of the way we communicate as humans, as a species, and how we learn and adopt behaviours. But one big part of our core learning programming era is between the ages of 2 and the ages of 7. We predominantly go through a stage what we call theta brainwave state. So theta brainwave state is like a dream state. It's a meditative state, a deep hypnotic state. And children, this is the reason why children actually believe in fairies and believe in Santa and all that kind of stuff. Because they're in a dream state. Their rational part of their brain is switched off. The thing is they don't have enough information to decide whether what is happening in front of them is true or false. If we see loads of people running that way, we don't think, why is everybody running? And everybody's screaming. And then you should get hit by, say, a saber-toothed tiger. Yeah? It's old, hunter-gatherer, it's fight or flight, and we're herding instincts. So we follow things. We learn from our environment. So when we see someone going, ah! What's that? And we see that thing with 8 legs, and we think, right, when I see one of those, that's how I act. There's only 2 fears that we're born with, and that's the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. So everything else is introduced by our environment, and we learn it. And because we just want to, download and assimilate the information, when we view somebody doing something, and we view their emotions, well, we've got another little phenomena. And has anybody heard the term empathic? You've probably heard of empathy, but have you heard of empathic? Well, just in case for the people that haven't, empathic means where you physically feel other people's emotions, as if they're your own, yeah? And, when you say things like that in the Western world, it's like, well, how do you feel other people's emotions? That's a bit kind of woo-woo and a bit... But actually, there's a thing called mirror neurons. Everybody knows we've got brain neurons in our brain. And these brain neurons fire in patterns which pertain to certain thoughts and feelings and, words as we say it. So when I say word, that word, the synapses that relate to that fire, identically each time. In fact, this phenomenon is so accurate. For $300 now, you can get a little headset, this little stick-on thing from a company in Canada, and it hooks up to your app, and you can think thoughts and control your app. In fact, you can now get interfaces where you can think, like if your curtains are remote control, telly or anything like that, you can think it, and your curtains will close. It's amazing. In fact, they say we're about 5 to 10 years off having thought to text. You know what we've got voice to text? Well, the next evolution is thought to text. You won't have a keyboard, you'll just sit there and you'll think it and it'll appear on the screen. Yeah? We're really close. The technology's there. We can actually do it now, but to make it commercially available, we're looking 5 to 10 years. I'll change the justice system, won't it? So, our environment conditions us. I've got a little story, a little analogy that I like, and call it the flea syndrome. Now, if you get a flea and you put it in a box, right, what does a flea want to do? It jumps. Yeah? Now, if you look at equivalents, it's actually the equivalent of someone like us jumping over the Eiffel Tower. Yeah? That's how incredibly strong they are. It's about 28 centimetres for an average flea. So if you put it in a box and you put a lid on the box, what's it going to do? It's going to jump. So if a flea could jump over the Eiffel Tower, and this was our box, you can have a bit of a dip in that ceiling, isn't it? Right? We're going to do that once and we think, ugh, not doing that again. So next time you jump, you don't jump quite so high. You put a little bit less effort in, because you know that amount of effort you put in last time caused pain and discomfort, and it hurt, and I don't like it, so I don't want it anymore. So we don't do it anymore. And eventually what happens is the flea just misses the lid. Now if you take the lid off that now, it will never escape. It's how they make flea services. They've conditioned the flea to know that going above that amount of effort causes pain and discomfort, so I'll not do it anymore. So this is how we operate in life. We might go and do a sales presentation, but then we'll get shot down or something like that. So that causes that little bit of pain. So next time you go to do the similar sort of thing, you're a bit reticent. You've got that little nerve in the background, that little conditioned response. And the way to look at it is it's just like an algorithm, like a computer. You press K on the computer, and K appears on the screen. Yeah? So things like public speaking. Quite a few people, when I'm talking to them, they say, yeah, when it's coming up to my turn to do my 40 seconds, I get more and more nervous, and I get more and more anxious, and that adrenaline and all that kind of stuff comes up. Well, all that is what we call an implicit memory. So we've got two types of memory, an implicit memory and an explicit memory. Now, implicit is where it's an emotional memory, but you don't remember the event that originally caused it. So one of my clients who had a challenge with public speaking, I traced it back to when she was 5 years old with a teacher. She was like, oh God, I know exactly what that is. One of my teachers always telling me to shut up and sit down. I used to like sharing, and I used to put my hand up all the time and everything like that. And my teacher was like, come on, stop interrupting the class, stop, being disruptive, right? Listen to me, we're not listening to you. This is one of the challenges with the education system. It's all about learn this to pass this, not actually apply it anywhere, but anyway, that's a different discussion. So, because of that, she got embarrassed. So she'd linked the embarrassment with standing up in front of people. So it's just an algorithm, just a little subconscious emotional memory, an implicit memory. So when it's her time to stand up, that emotional response, the emotion is this subconscious pattern. And that's the thing. A lot of people, when I say 95% of your day, you are totally subconscious. You don't even realise you're doing what you're doing. People are like, oh no, I know what I'm doing all the time. But actually, do you? You're observing it from an outside perspective. But ultimately, your emotions dictate what you do. How you feel about any given situation dictates what you do in that situation, what action you take. Now, if you're scared of a particular outcome, what you will want to do is avoid everything that leads to that particular outcome. You think you're doing it consciously, but that decision was based on the emotion. And the emotion is an implicit memory, which is totally subconscious and totally reactionary. So being mindful of how you feel and why you feel it is the single most important thing you can do. And 80%, so 95% of everything you do every day is completely subconscious. 80% of these programs were established before you were 12 years old. So in every business decision you make, 80% of them at least, it's your 12-year-old self or younger making that decision, making that choice. And it's based on feelings and emotions. Are we doing for time?
What behind you? Yeah,
5 minutes.
Oh, there is.
5 minutes.
Right, so let me give you a little demonstration. Who's been brave enough to be a little... Such enthusiasm.
That's me.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Martin. So, if you want to come to the front. So, what I want to demonstrate to you is how you physically react to stimulus. Now, if you are stressed by something, subconsciously you want to avoid it. It's as simple as that. Yeah? So, when we're looking for stress responses, one of the ways I use is using what they call the parasympathetic nervous system. So your nervous system, don't get nervous, that's your fight or flight. Yeah? So if something stresses you, it weakens you. Yeah? Now, language is what the subconscious is built upon. Right? So finding the language which causes that stress, well then you can identify limiting beliefs. Right? So a very simple one that I do with a lot of networking, right? So the muscle, it's called muscle testing, or psychokinesiology is the technical term. So your left hand or right hand? So give me your left hand. We use the non-dominant arm for testing. So what we do is we put the arm out, and we're going to push down, and I want you just to stop me. Yeah? So nice and strong. Okay, so we'll get a baseline. Again, nice and strong. Very good. So we'll use a simple one. So we're going to use your name. So say, my name is Martin.
My name is Martin.
And resist. Same strength. Yeah? So pick a girl's name.
Emma.
Say, my name is Emma.
My name is Emma.
Tell me again.
My name is Emma.
And resist. See, it was weaker.
Yeah.
Say, I'm a man.
I'm a man.
Resist. Rock solid. Say, I'm a woman.
I'm a woman.
He's almost falling over. So basically, it's like a lie detector. When you tell a lie, it physically causes a disruption in the body. Yeah? Because it's untrue to you. So lie detectors measure several things. One thing is the galvanic skin response. In other words, you sweat. Yeah? When you sweat, you change the conductivity of your skin, and it measures the electrical conductivity. The other thing is fight or flight. You're getting ready to fight for your life or run for your life. So what do we need? We need more oxygen. We need more blood. So your heart rate goes up. Yeah? We start to sweat because we're about to have physical energy, and that's going to expand heat. So we're preemptively starting to get rid of our heat. Yeah? We dump adrenaline in our body. Adrenaline tells our muscles to take on more glucose, so we've got more energy. You dump cortisol in your body, the stress hormone. Cortisol basically shuts down your internal organs. I mean, what's the point in digesting your breakfast? I know you've just had it and it's lovely, but if you're about to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, well, what's the point in digesting your food? Because you are food. Yeah? And if anybody's had a really large Sunday dinner or something like that, and afterwards you're like, you're knackered, aren't you? Well, a heavy Sunday lunch is the equivalent of a brisk walk to digest the amount of energy it takes. That's why it wears you out. Yeah? So when we're using this psychokinesiology, this muscle testing, what we're looking for is that flip in fight or flight. So what we're utilising is not the galvanic skin response, we're utilising what they call cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is where there's a conflict between the rational part of your brain, which is dealing with the language and things like that, and the motor cortex, which is dealing with the muscle function. Yeah? So another very simple test, right, if we come back up here. So, nice and strong, okay. So I say, as Martin, I completely love and accept myself now that I earn enough. You have to say it, I'm sorry, you have to repeat it. Because I'm saying it as if I am you, so you take it already. So you were nice and strong, so you're paying your bills, everything's comfortable and things like that. So the other test is, as Martin, I completely love and accept myself now that I'm happy to earn millions. See, that was much weaker. Yeah? So it's a very simple test. About 80% of people will test weak for wanting to earn millions. In fact, one statistic, 80%, over 80% of lottery winners within 2 years go bankrupt. And what it is their relationship with money. That's the simple fact of the matter. Because our environment conditions us to have certain expectations in life, right? You know, this is why poverty breeds poverty, middle class breeds middle class, wealth breeds wealth. The reason is the people in poverty have got a father or a mother or something like that, someone in the family that hasn't achieved anything in their life. And they're like, oh, you're a waste of space, you'll never achieve, oh, you're bloody useless, get off your lazy arse, and all this derogatory language. Yeah? And if you can imagine your mind being like a tree, and the words that are heard by you are like the prevailing winds, your tree is going to lean with the prevailing winds of your thoughts. Now, one scary statistic was, they did an assessment in schools, and they looked at how many negative comments the average child receives compared to positive comments. And it was 14 to 1. 14 negative comments for every one positive comment that they received. So, is there any wonder that kids grow up very apathetic, stressed, and with low self-esteem and things like that? I mean, one major thing is, well, I broached it earlier, there's a major shift going away from people in really high education places from getting rid of the testing. Yeah? Because we're focusing on just passing a test rather than applying the actual information. And if we can get away from that, we'll change the education system. Again, it's a slightly different conversation. So between the ages of 2 and 7, you are the most susceptible to this program. Okay? Now another thing which is a rather interesting phenomenon, we'll go for a little experiment here. Don't worry, we're not going to do any lasting damage. Sometimes we think, what other people think of us affects us. There's a book by Rupert Sheldrake actually as well, called The Science of Being Stared At, which is an interesting phenomenon. I'm actually working with Rupert Sheldrake to do a telepathy test. We're looking to prove scientifically that telepathy exists. In fact, once we've scaled doing the online test, we're looking at hiring the bomb shelter underneath London that Churchill built and doing the most telepathic person in Britain. And it's how we're affected by other people's thoughts. So what I want to do, right, we'll get a baseline. So in fact, I'm going to stand behind you. Right, so arm out. So I just want a nice, strong, nice resist, strong. There we go. So what I want everybody to do is I want everybody to look at Martin, and I want you to send him a negative thought. Yeah? So don't worry, there's no lasting damage. We'll delete it afterwards. So it might be, just send, even if it's not true, it doesn't matter. If he's, he's ugly, or he's horrible, he's a miserable git, or whatever it is. So everybody look at him, right, and just send him that negative thought. Yeah? Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
See how weak you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So let's get rid of that. Now I want everybody to look at him and send him a really positive thought. Maybe he's actually a handsome devil after all. Right? Maybe he's a really nice guy to talk to. I can vouch for that. I was chatting to him earlier. Yeah? So just think of one nice thing that you like about him, and then just look at him and send that information. Yeah? So when you're ready, so test. See how much stronger that was?
I think I'm
Thank you, you go sit down. So there's lots of things that can affect us, right? In fact, actually, there's one more little thing I'm going to do. So this is actually a good way, if you're nervous going into places, into big rooms or things like that, there's ways of protecting that energy. And if you remember, right, how you feel about somebody is being broadcast in this heart field. So actually people feel it internally. This is part of the cancellation and reinforcement. If someone's got a negative opinion on you, you often feel it in some ways, don't you? So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a way of protecting you against that energy, something that you can do yourself. So one way of doing it is, it sounds a bit strange for the Western world, but this is something which, again, the evidence speaks for itself. So there's two ways of doing it. One, you can picture the fountains at the Las Vegas where they shoot up in the air, right? You can think of a ring of water shooting up either side, or you can think of like an aura, like an eggshell with white light around. Okay? So what I want you to do is just visualize, close your eyes, and just visualize that shell of white light, or the fountains, or whatever it is. Okay? And when you've got that image, just give me a nod, and when you've got a strong image of that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So now I want everybody to do, right? So we're going to just do the basic test. So nice and strong. Okay, we're back to the same strength. So I want everybody to send that negative energy at him again. Just think of something bad and just fling it at him like a bit of mud. Yeah? So you're still picturing that image? Yeah? So nice and strong. See how strong that was? Okay, so just a minute. Just open your eyes. Right, everybody send that negative to him. See how weak you were then? Yeah? That's actually a Tai Chi move. In martial arts, people do that. They actually take that energy away. It's a way of weakening your energy field, and then you're more susceptible to outside influence. So, I'll just put it back up. There you go. Right, come back up here, nice and strong. See how strong that was compared to the before. There you go.
Thank you.
So our energy is a really strange phenomenon, and we, as you can see there, we can play around with it. And that's kind of, what you need to do. You need to find out what is a lie to you. Now, what are your hopes and dreams for your business, for your life? Yeah? Now, if one of your hopes is to earn 100 grand a year, let's say it's a monetary target, well, use this test at home, right? Do the I'm a man, I'm a woman, or whatever it is, find that baseline, and then say, one of the key phrases is, I completely love and accept myself. Now, if you cannot completely love and accept yourself and finish a sentence, there's a conflict, there's a problem, there's an issue that you need resolving. Because you should be able to completely love and accept yourself at any moment in time with anything, shouldn't you? So, if you say, I completely love and accept myself now that I'm happy to earn up to 10 grand, up to 20, up to 30, at some point as you do that, you will go physically weak because it is a lie to you. Now, if you're wanting to earn 50 and your lie to you is 25, well, what's going to happen? If the thought of earning above 25 grand physically causes you stress enough to weaken you, subconsciously you're going to avoid everything to get you there, because getting you there is going to cause you more stress than where you are now. That's what a limiting belief is. And they can be very convoluted in many ways. I had a very experienced coach, been coaching for 10 years, and he had one of his limiting beliefs was actually he'd made an association with somebody he used to work with, right, who was, to be honest with you, everybody didn't like him. It was the top salesman of the business, right, but he was obnoxious, he was egotistical, it was just one of those slimy people that nobody actually liked. Never met him, so it's nothing personal from me. Yeah, this was just a description that I got after we'd found it, right? And what he'd done is he'd made an association with having that level of income with having to be that kind of person. And because everybody didn't like him, well, he didn't want to be that kind of person because he didn't want everybody to talk to him like everybody talked about him. Does that make sense? Yeah? So because he associated that level of income with that kind of personality, well, they'd never earned that much. Because subconsciously, he didn't want to be that person. And if you've got any friends, there's Jim Rohn, we said about this earlier, he says you become an amalgamation of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. And what it is we're herding animals. We like to fit in. When we go into new social groups, you'll start adopting mannerisms of people in the group that you like. Because it's our way of if we mirror people, we get accepted more. Yeah? I mean, in sales training, if anybody's done any really in-depth sales training, and you sat in front of people, if you mirror what they're doing, right? You subconsciously allow them to accept you more. To know if it's worked, halfway through what you do is you change your posture. If they mirror you, you know you've got them hooked. Yeah? There's all little tricks that you can, use to do that. But also, the emotional language and everything like that, it comes out in our body language. So being more mindful and more present in our situation, instead of being stuck in our heads thinking about what we've got to say, but being observant, you will actually get a lot more information from your environment.
Adrian, that's absolutely fantastic stuff.
I think.
We're just a tad over time at the moment.
Right.
But quick question, anybody?
If you've got that limiting belief that it's 25 grand or whatever it be, how can you get yourself past that?
That's a very good question. And one thing that I've been researching probably for 25 years is that question. Because I'm kind of very aggressively entrepreneurial and I've got high aspirations. I want to earn millions, mainly because I want to give millions away. I've got a community interest company that I want to build. And it was actually over the last couple of years which really everything kind of slotted into place. And this is where I look at self-development, a little bit like the pharmaceutical industry. It masks the symptoms, but it doesn't get rid of the actual core problem. And what you've got to do is you've got to really address it directly. There's a number of people out there that do things like this, but it's, the way I deal with it is I find out what the language is through the muscle testing and actually identify exactly what the belief is. And then there's modalities to process that out. In essence, some people call it biohacking. And what you're doing is you're removing the fight or flight response, the stress response to the subject matter. Once you remove the stress to the subject matter, then all of a sudden your level of consciousness changes because you no longer, because we work on confirmation bias, yeah? So if we've got a fear, we want to look in our environment to prove everything right about that fear. Once you get rid of the fear, then your mind looks in the environment to prove actually what it is you want rather than what it is you fear. So there's a technique to desensitize that stress response, and it's finding the language, what you're telling yourself internally, and then removing it completely. When you do that, how you perceive your environment, how you perceive your life, how you perceive your business and everything, it changes because the algorithm changes.
Adrian, clearly you're a perfectionist in this field of yours, pardon the fun. Big round of applause for Adrian. I'm sure Adrian would love to have a one-to-one with you after the meeting or some other time whenever it suits. Adrian, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, it's now time for our three